We have reached number one on my list of my top 6 favorite movies. Coming in at number one, the 1981 action adventure film starring Tom Selleck. Harrison Ford. And the movie is, in case you haven't figured it out by now,
Da-da-da-da.
Indiana Smith.
Da-da-da-da.
which is almost the original name.
Yes.
Indiana
George
what?
Lucas's original pitch to Steven Spielberg was, hey, I've got an idea. It's kind of like James Bond. Indiana Smith. What do you think?
Spielberg said, I don't like that
I like
name.
Indiana.
So they named it Indiana Jones. And Indiana came from, anybody? Bueller?
The state of Indiana.
No.
A guitar brand.
No. Indiana was the name of George Lucas's dog.
Dog.
Really?
Yes, he had a big Alaskan Malamute, and he named it Indiana. And they actually make that reference in The Last Crusade, where he says, you were named
the
after...
dog, Indiana.
Yep. So that's where that came from. And they had done that actually a couple times throughout the first movies. Willie Scott. Willie was named after one of the production assistants' dog's name was Willie. Short Round, I believe that was Spielberg's dog. It's named Short Round. But no, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the one that we are going to be talking about today. It's the first one, and this is the adventures of archaeologist Indiana Jones trotting around the globe looking for artifacts and rare antiquities, and he is trying to locate the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis can get their hands on it. So we follow Indiana down to Tanis in Egypt, and he locates the Ark, and lots of cool stuff happens. So
It's a weird movie to pick because there's not a lot of spirituality in this movie.
not at all.
Yeah, there is. What about the
there's-
Ark?
hardly any religion talk.
No, they don't talk. They don't speak of
Oh,
God
yeah.
or
I
anything
think
in this
just-
movie. No,
Yes,
not at all.
that was
Do you guys know what the Ark is?
Yes, it's the
the
Ark
big
that
thing that holds souls that melt your face off. I've seen the movie.
No, that's what the movie says. But like biblically, what do you think the Ark is?
Well,
or do
they
you know?
explained it in the movie as it was the ark that was brought down from Mount Horeb that contained the 10 Commandments. As Indy says, the actual 10 Commandments that Moses brought down and smashed, if you believe in that sort of thing. Didn't you ever go to Sunday school?
Also, the Ark itself is supposed to be a throne.
Really?
Yeah. So the thought was that when it was in the temple and they burned incense, like the priests would go in there and burn incense and it would make this cloud over it. The thought was that, like, I think the Ark was supposed to be like God's footstool. They thought like he would appear as a man, because people don't realize this, but in the Old Testament, like God was appearing as an angel called the angel of the Lord. That's actually supposed to be like God himself. So like Jesus gets linked to this angel by the New Testament author. So they're basically saying God's appearing as Jesus in the Old Testament, but it's an angel, not a actual human. So when they thought God appeared above this ark in the form of a man, and the ark would be his footstool. So that is actually what they're carrying around or they're looking for in the movie. But see, they don't actually realize the fact that's wrong in the movies. They think that if you open it, like, I don't know if they think God's dwelling in the ark, because that was a common misconception. He actually would like dwell above the ark, and the ark would be like his throne or footstool.
Yeah, they take in the Indiana Jones franchise. They always take. They usually take a real life object. Their MacGuffin, but they always kind of twist what the actual thing is. So yes, the Ark of the Covenant was a real thing, but in this one, they talk about the Ark is able to level mountains, and it's able to, whoever has the Ark is unstoppable. It gives them that much power, and that's why Hitler is wanting this Ark so bad, because it would give him the power to take over the world. Now that's their take on it,
Yeah. Well, that is how like some other nations would have seen the Ark, because like whoever had the Ark, like it's not whoever had it, but the fact that Israel had it, like God was supposed to be fighting for them. But if like some other pagan nation took it, that didn't necessarily mean God would be fighting for them because they don't serve God. So if they just looked at the ark as a weapon, it wasn't that. It was like
Yeah.
God was the weapon almost, you know?
Yeah. Well, they had mentioned in the movie, Rene Belloc is the French archaeologist that's Indy's rival in this one. And he was explaining to Indiana that, the ark is a radio to speaking to God. This is what this will do. And that's why he wanted it so much. And he wanted to get stuff out of it before, he could give it to the Nazis. But so, yeah, so I mean, this movie ranks so high for me is because, I mean, I literally could watch this movie every single day and just not get tired of it. There is so much going on every 15 minutes. It's just, there's something, it starts off, he's in the jungles of South America and he gets chased by a boulder. And real quickly after that, he's in Nepal and he's in a bar fight and the thing is blowing up around him. And now he's in Cairo getting chased through the streets. And I mean, it's just non-stop action throughout this whole movie. And just, I even love like the villains in this. Major Tote, he's the guy that wears the glasses, gets his hand burnt.
That guy's scary.
He's one of the creepiest villains ever. He's so creepy. So Ronald Lacey plays him, and he shaved it. There's a scene where he takes his hat off and he wipes his forehead, and he's got hair except for up here. He's like bald on the top, but you can see that he clearly shaved his head, and he did it on purpose to give him that creepy look. It's so weird. Rene Belloc, who's the French archaeologist, is an interesting villain because he's not a Nazi. He's actually after the Ark for, in a way, research. He doesn't care about what the Nazis plan. He wants it to do his own research for it. So it's like, is Rene Belloc really a bad guy? Is he really an enemy? You don't really know where he fits in. So I think that makes him really intriguing. But
he did try to kill Indy at the beginning.
Actually, I don't. Well, that's when Indy took off running.
Yeah, he's like, go kill him.
That, by the way, means go get him in Javitos.
Probably.
Yeah, but this movie is just so much fun to watch. I mean, it's got John Williams did the music.
Of course.
And I mean, it doesn't get any better when it comes to film scores than John Williams. Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters, Jurassic Park, Superman, E.T., the Olympics, for crying out loud.
He didn't do Rocky.
He did not do Rocky. But the music, the action, and Indiana Jones is like hands down my favorite movie character of all time. And the reason I love this guy so much is he's an archaeology professor. He's kind of an everyday guy. He's like a superhero, doesn't have superhero powers, and he's always getting in over his head. And I love the fact that they show that human side to him, that he seems like in every fight he's overmatched. He's always in a position where it just doesn't look good and he's got to figure out a way to get out of it. He's got to fight the big German mechanic and he's getting his butt kicked until the German goes into the propeller of the plane. He's able to get around at the beginning to get that idol. And he's like, just put this bag of sand on it. It'll be fine. And of course, the whole place collapses on him. He gets chased by a boulder and he still loses the relic that he was after. Everything's just too much for him. But I love that. I love the fact that he can get hurt. I love the fact that he has that human side to him. It just, it's someone like you can almost relate to. If I could be anybody, I'd be Indiana Jones because seems like it'd just be so cool to do the things that he does. And because of him, I took a big interest in archaeology, and learning about history and learning. I studied history in college and took some archaeology classes, and that's 100% because of Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That movie changed your life, man.
It did. And all the movies are good. Crystal Skull is probably my least favorite one. There's some cringy moments in it.
Definitely.
Dial of Destiny just came out, and I've seen it twice, and I loved it. I love Dial of Destiny. I thought it was such a great way to say goodbye to an old friend. That's how I felt about that. But when people think of Indiana Jones, mostly they think of Raiders, Temple of Doom, which is really dark, and Last Crusade,
Right.
which again, Last Crusade's a little bit more like Raiders, and it's got Sean Connery who plays his dad. But some of the scenes in Raiders are just top notch. My favorite one in this is the whole like 20-minute truck chase. They load the Ark onto this truck. He's got to go get it. And he's chasing it on a horse. He gets on the truck. He fights the guy off. He's driving the truck. All these soldiers are trying to get to him. He's knocking them off by driving into the trees. Another guy comes in, shoots him, throws him out the front of the truck. Now he's on the front of it. He goes under it, gets dragged behind it, comes back up, kicks this guy, and then throws him out. And it basically does the same thing. This is a 20-minute sequence, and it's just amazing. And what's even really incredible is Harrison Ford is the guy being drugged behind the truck. Like, he would do his own stunts in this. So it's just an incredible film. And the first one that I was introduced to was Temple of Doom. So that's how I discovered Indiana Jones. And then I ended up getting Raiders on VHS and watching it for the first time, and just was absolutely blown away by it. So the character of Marion was a great.
No Kidder.
Yeah, she was very good in this role. So yeah, and I'm obviously, you guys. What do you guys? Let's get some comments. What do you guys think?
Boy, I loved this movie too. And if I'm picking the best Indiana Jones movie, it is a toss-up between 1 and 3. I feel like I'm going to have to watch Last Crusade again to decide. But the end of this movie, I was so fascinated but horrified as a kid of seeing, the face melting scene. I guess that's like a wax. They did that with wax and melted it.
It's all like kind of claymation-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop
and
motion.
the ghost that comes out, I don't know what that is. I mentioned earlier that the movie takes its own take on the Ark. Like, I don't care if it's not a critique of mine. I think what they did, the way they changed what the Ark is, really benefits the movie. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who I grew up with a church background, so it was cool to see them like going after some biblical artifact and making a mystery about it. Like it made it dangerous and scary and cool, and you're kind of in awe all at the same time. So I loved it. And yeah, that end scene, that is awesome. I would watch that. That was my benchmark for Indiana Jones, like, climaxes, right?
Yeah.
And that is the reason I was so disappointed, I think, with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because I would rather watch the end of this movie, Raiders, than watch that CGI alien scene at the end of, it's a newer movie. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ought to have at least as good of a climax, but like, go back to using claymation or something, make that worthy of this series. And it just wasn't there. But
Right.
this series had such a great start.
It did. And I love the fact that everything was mostly practical effects when it came to this. It looked like a real place. No, I mean, and it looked like you could touch it. It looked like you were there, and it gives it that real feeling. And I agree with you 100% on Crystal Skull. It was too CG'd. It was too clean, and it didn't have that grittiness. But yeah, when I think of Indiana Jones, man, I'm thinking of he's in some exotic location that looks real and tangible, like you could touch it and see it there. And they really set that atmosphere up with this movie. With every, I don't know, it's just Lucas is the producer, story writer. Steven Spielberg is the director, and Spielberg has a knack for camera angles and shots and setting up the lighting the right way. And he just nailed it with this movie. You just get that atmosphere, and it just kind of sucks you right into it.
I do need to make a correction. You were talking about Marion. I mentioned Margot Kidder. Got my names wrong. It is Karen Allen. Margot Kidder was Lois Lane.
Yes.
My apologies for that. Hopefully no one turned off before I was able to change that. But yeah, great. Another good movie. I have to say Indiana Jones hasn't always been my favorite. I've watched the first 3 plenty of times. Watched the 4th one once. Haven't seen the newest one yet. I do enjoy them. I do enjoy them. So, and I know you really love them. We've talked about actually in Indiana Jones so much. I thought this was one of your older ones.
Like we've covered it already.
Yeah, we're sitting here. You left to go change, and we're like, what is it? Now, I was thinking, did Die Hard get nominated for Academy Award? What?
Yeah, Die Hard. Yeah,
because I
What's
seriously,
number one
since we've
gonna
been
be?
talking about the newest one so much lately, I really thought we've already done this. So, but no, I totally get that. A lot of spiritual themes throughout, or a lot of, I don't know as much themes, but references. Obviously, it's very. But you guys talked about it a lot. Very biblical, and it is cool to. You get a lot of great heroes that are strong and are fast and can fly, and but at the same point with Indy, it's kind of cool that you get the intelligence as well.
Yeah.
It's not all just kicking butt. It's also, let me think, let me try this, and as they move into the movies, it's even more problem solvings and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. He says at one point when he's telling Sala, hey, go do this, go back to Omar's, meet me there. I'm going after that truck. And he says, how? And Indy's like, I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. Like, he has no plan, but he's just trying to think so quickly on how am I going to get out of a situation that I'm in. And I love that about this character. He also has one of my all-time favorite movie lines ever. I've seen her on the ship. Marion had just probably taken a shower or bath. She's looking at this mirror on one side and it's all foggy. And Indy's on the other side, checking out his chin because he just got drugged by a truck and he's all in pain. And Marion wipes the mirror and then just takes it and spins it. And you can see Indy's head on the other side of the mirror just go boom, like that. And it shows a shot of the ship and you just hear him screaming, ah! So when it comes back, she's like, did you say something? And he's like, yeah, I just want to go to bed. So he gets up and he's laying down and she says, we're just not as young as we were or something like that. And his quote to her is, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage. And I think I have used that every year when somebody says happy birthday to me. I can't believe how does it feel to be this age? Well, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And I just think that's such a great line to think about when you're talking about an age.
Yeah.
It's true for football players.
Yeah. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
That's true for anybody.
Yeah. So Indy.
Good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, I love Indiana Jones, and to think that this movie was almost starring Tom Selleck.
Wouldn't have been the same.
It would not have. Tom Selleck.
Wouldn't it have though been maybe?
Well, that's the thing.
You can't. I mean, it's impossible to imagine anyone else. But
Right.
Tom Selleck was a cool dude.
Tom Selleck is a really good actor, and I mean, he auditioned. They did a screen test with him and actually Sean Young, and then they brought in Karen Allen. And it's out there. You can actually see the screen test with Tom Selleck. He's got the jacket and he's wearing the fedora and he's got his mustache. And that's what the weird part is. But they do the screen test and he was actually going to be Indy, but he had also just signed a contract to do Magnum PI. And CBS wouldn't let him out of his contract to go film because you have to do this TV show. So you can't go to Africa and shoot this. So he had to back out. Spielberg kept telling George Lucas, let's get Harrison to do this. And Lucas is like, well, I've already used him in 3 of my movies. I don't want him to be my Robert De Niro. I don't want to be like the Scorsese De Niro thing. But they end up getting Harrison Ford and the rest is history. And the weird thing is there was a writer's strike in 1980 when they were getting ready to film Raiders. So it turned out that Tom Selleck actually could have filmed Raiders of the Lost Ark. He would have been available because of the writer's strike.
Somebody's going to make it with AI.
He probably wouldn't have been available for the sequel, though.
No.
That's the only problem.
So he went on and had great success with Magnum PI. And there's actually an episode of Magnum PI, I think it's in the 7th season. It's called Raiders of the Lost Art. And it's a spoof of Indiana Jones. Wow. They are on a treasure hunt trying to find this art. And occasionally one of the characters will let it slip. They'll call it an ark. And they all have to remind it, art, not ark, art. And he's in full Indiana Jones gear. He's got the fedora, the shirt, the whip, the jacket. He looks like this is. So if you ever want to picture what Tom Selleck would have been like as Indiana Jones, just watch that episode and you get a pretty good idea. They actually, I think in that, they say it's something like, he makes a comment about being like this adventure thing, and Higgins, the guy on the show, says, you already had, you had your shot. Like you had a chance to do this and you didn't do it. So it's a pretty good episode though. But
and they make reference to that in Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Do they?
Yeah, you ever look at the way they look?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess. Dale
one of them is wearing a fedora and a leather coat. The other guy's wearing a flowered
Hawaiian
button-up shirt.
You're right.
So one's dressed like Magnum, the other's dressed like Indy.
Wow. I never really realized that. Well, this movie has actually like influenced a lot of other adventure films, and I mean, and Raiders in itself has actually had taken inspiration from movies that had come before it. There's an old Humphrey Bogart film from the 40s or 50s, and the guy's got the fedora and the jacket, and you'll see a lot of movies back then where this was the attire of the adventurer. So they kind of base it off that, but then in itself, Indiana Jones inspired a lot of other kind of
Quickly Down Under
knockoffs.
I bet you Uncharted and Tomb Raider both wouldn't exist without Indiana Jones.
It's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like National Treasure has kind of those Indiana Jones vibes. Yeah, I mean, there's another movie in the mid-'80s, King Solomon's Mine, it had Sharon Stone and Richard Chamberlain, and it is a direct spoof of Indiana Jones, and it's so campy that it's just absurd. But he's got the fedora, and he's wearing the whole outfit, and John Rhys Davies, who plays Saul in Indiana Jones, is actually the bad guy in this movie. So it's like, wow. It's really rough. I don't know why he did that, but yeah. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is my number one movie that if I was stuck on an island and I could only watch one for the rest of my life, it would be this.
Good call.
One trivia question before we go. If you know the answer to this, in Dial of Destiny, Indy says he's been shot 9 times. Were all of those 9 times on screen?
He'll know. Pointing at Drew.
No.
That is a lot of times to get shot on screen in
I can
over
think
the course
of
5 movies.
Yeah, at the top of my head I can think of twice.
Man, why I was thinking how cool it would be.
There's no way you'd miss 7.
Yeah.
I got one more trivia question.
You got shot in Raiders in the arm. You got shot in Dial of Destiny at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only 2 I can think of.
One more trivia question. How did they close the ark when everyone else died because they were tied up?
The lid just landed right back on top of the ark.
Huh?
The lid? Is that what you're talking about? It just came down and landed on top of the ark.
Did it at the end of it?
It shot up and then it came down and landed.
Okay, so they just didn't tie him up that well.
They did tie him up. The spirits that were flying around, destroying everybody who was watching it, died. Except for Marion and Indy. They had their eyes shut. They weren't looking at it. And it freed their ropes and it freed their hands.
Oh, so it let them go?
And it let them go.
The spirits did?
Yep.
Okay.
It basically freed them.
It's been a while since I've seen that.
So it's almost like they were being rewarded for...
Not looking?
They didn't look at it. He knew enough to don't look at this. And they didn't, and they were freed. It singed the ropes, so they were free.
Yeah, I just had an epiphany about this movie. This is actually based on the concept, I think, of you can't actually see God and live. That's an idea from the Old Testament. There are some verses that appear to say, like Moses saw God face to face, but apparently there's some clues there to say that's a metaphor. The whole idea is like you can't see God unfiltered. Like you can't see his fullness. So if you see him, in the Old Testament, it had to be in a filtered form, like as a man, like he appears as Jesus in the Old Testament.
Alanis Morissette.
The angel, the God, the angel of the Lord. Alanis Morissette, what?
From Dogma.
Kevin Smith movie.
Oh. So, the idea, you can't look at God and live. So I think because those ghosts came out of the ark, that's probably related to that concept. They probably got that.
Makes sense.
So if Indiana Jones is an archaeologist, knows his biblical history, then that's how he's going to know to close his eyes. So that's actually really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
they did the research on that. They when they were picking their MacGuffins, they had to pick something that was of, real world, but what can we do a spin on? And they had to do that research into it. So, just like they did with the Holy Grail, the Shankara stones are actual thing. A crystal skull is an actual thing.
Bought that with vodka in it.
You did. He's got one. Somehow
I
Dan
didn't think of
Aykroyd is able to. He had a crystal skull and he put vodka in it. So that's it. I think I could leave you with one more little bit of trivia and then we can wrap this up. So in this movie, Harrison Ford improvised another scene. He was supposed to have this big fight with the swordsman in the streets of Cairo. And this swordsman, he's flipping his sword around, and Harrison Ford was supposed to use his whip the guy around a couple times, get into a fist fight and all that stuff. Well, Harrison Ford was sick this day, was fighting some stomach bug.
He had dysentery, right?
He had dysentery, yes. And
I got that in Oregon Trail once.
so he's out there, obviously not feeling real well. We're in Tunisia, so it's like 175 degrees outside in the desert. So you try doing these action stunts with dysentery. So they finally had a take where swordsman's doing his thing, and he's supposed to fight him, and Harrison just pulls out his gun and fires the gun. Guy drops, and they thought, you know what? That works better than what we actually had planned.
I love that part.
So they used it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was 100% Harrison Ford's idea. He's like, I can't do this fight. How about if I just shoot the guy? I just pull out my gun and shoot him. And they're like, yeah, let's try it. And they're like, that's brilliant. It's like, it is. It's brilliant.
That is
So-
awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. So again, just letting him do his thing, and I can't picture anybody else ever playing this role. That's it. That's my
Awesome.
number one movie of all time.
Well, thank you, Drew.
Good call.
So, with the completion of this episode, all three of us have finished our top 6 favorite movies on YouTube. So, if you want to see the rest, you can go to our YouTube channel and look for our top 6 lists. That's 18 movies, 18 little podcasts that you can go through. If you liked this episode, hit the like and subscribe button and turn on notifications. And hey, tell us what your favorite Indiana Jones movie is in the comments. Is it Raiders? Is it God forbid it be the Crystal Skull, but whatever it is, tell us what it is, and if tell us what it is and why it's your favorite. So we will see you guys next time.